Hey everybody, welcome back to Reckoning with Jason Herbert. I am, of course, your host and creator, Jason Herbert, and we have a great conversation for you today about the new film Superman that just released this last weekend. And I brought on for you three of my best friends on the planet, three guys who actually had never met each other before this podcast. I'm talking about Alan Malfavon, John Wyatt Greenlee, and Colin Colbourn. We just cut about 10 seconds ago from this podcast. We had a lot of fun talking about this new film. If you're listening in, what you should know is that we do a spoiler-free discussion early on, and then we give you a very clear marker and then go into a spoiler-filled discussion about the themes of this film, what we liked, what we didn't like, and our final thoughts on the film. So sit back and relax because Superman is next on Reckoning with Jason Herbert. I haven't bathed in like 2 days. I'm sitting over here. It's hot in Colorado. My kid's here. He's gross because he's 13. I'm running back and forth to the gym because I have to get all sexy now. I have to sell this shit again. And I'm just gross. So I literally was wearing a tank top because I was going to go to the gym again. So I went to like Carl's Jr. for lunch. And then I looked at the calories on this thing, and I'm like,
and then you have to go back to the gym after that.
You disgusting human being. Like it was like I had a Coca-Cola for the first time in like a week at Carl's Jr. And I was like, oh my God, this is so good. Right. So I'm back to drinking water in my.
You probably got plenty of protein, man. I think you're fine.
I know, but I got plenty of fat too. And I have to sell this. I am going to be 48 on Saturday. Do you know how hard it is to date at my age? It's like the popular games you play at the bar are like find the skin tag. It's like, it's so bad. You know, it's just like you come in, you've got a nice walker. You should you bring, instead of flowers, you bring tennis balls for the lady to like put on the bottom of her walker, you know, maybe something brightly colored to say, you know, you're thinking about. It's bad. I'm just sold. Anyway, it's good. All right, I'm excited. None of you guys have ever actually met before. So this is, and you've all been on the pod like 47 times each. So this will be fun to hear how we're going to talk about this. So for you guys listening in, we're gonna introduce our guests today. We're going to have a spoiler-free discussion early on about our general impressions of Superman 2025. And then we'll jump into a spoiler-filled conversation about what we thought about the film, the specifics, what we liked, what we didn't like, the casting. Rachel Brosnahan seems okay with me. John Wyatt's making it. This will go great on the YouTube page. So, all right, let's start.
I'm just nodding in agreement, man.
You should. I'm the fearless leader. All right, I'm going to start with introductions. Colin Colbourn, you were the first person to be here today. You want to introduce yourself and your favorite superhero, sir?
Yeah, I'm Colin Colbourn. I am a military historian. I must have just accidentally clicked on this link because I don't have a background in superhero movies other than I like them and comics and stuff like that. So I don't know how I got on this pod today, but I'm excited.
You're a bro.
I would definitely say I'm a traditional Batman guy for me.
Very good. Alan, you were second. Who are you?
Who am I? I ask myself that every question. I'm just kidding. Every day. Alan Malfavon. I am a historian of colonial 19th century Latin American history, Atlantic world, Black diaspora. I would say if I had to choose one single favorite superhero of all time, I know we're talking DCU, but probably go with Wolverine from the original X-Men animated series, 97. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very nice. John Wyatt.
Hey, it's good to see y'all. I am John Wyatt Greenlee. I am a cartographic historian and a map maker and also the world's premier eel historian.
It's about time we had an eel expert on Superman podcast, by the way.
Yeah, there was a real lack of eels. I was pretty disappointed, but
there were eels in the movie we watched on Sunday night. I'm just saying. We did Bloodsport, and there were eels in that film.
Are there? Oh, wow. Hey, I haven't seen Bloodsport since I was a kid, so
when they're eating on the table or on those boats, Forrest Whitaker's eating eels.
Sweet.
There you go. All right,
I gotta remember that.
Wyatt, go ahead.
Anyway, yeah. So I'm here because I'm one of Jason's go-to. Like, I need to do a pod next week. Can you help me?
You'll say yes.
I will, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm a medievalist by training, and so I'm going to go lean on Thor as my favorite. Absolutely, it's going to be Thor.
Nice.
I'm gonna go Spider-Man for me, the original, the OG Peter Parker. But here's my thing: I prefer like 28-year-old young adult Peter Parker. I think teenage Peter Parker in Crisis is kind of annoying. Give me Andrew Garfield Peter Parker. That's my on film. That's my sweet spot. I think he's actually that's Tom Holland's great. I like him, and I really love Tobey Maguire. But I think it's actually Andrew Garfield. He's the closest to the comic book version that we see. So. All right, gentlemen, I begged all three of you. Did any of you actually plan on going to see the movie before I asked you to?
Nope.
No.
Colin says no, John. All right, well, I'm not giving any of you your money back. So
it's okay. I got Tuesday matinee price today, so we're all good.
Yeah, you just came from seeing it, right?
Yeah, I did. I just saw it.
Can I tell you, one time when we did Dirty Dancing, Lauren Lesab Shepard finished watching the movie like 5 minutes before we started recording. So it was hyper fresh in her opinion. All right, so today, let's start off. Let's give some general impressions of what we saw. Did we like it? Did we not? Because I've kind of talked a little bit to you guys. There are some differing opinions on how we felt about this new iteration of Superman. So, Alan, I'm looking at you first because I'm going to see you next. What were your thoughts on this movie?
I was pleasantly surprised. I guess having seen Man of Steel, which I personally liked, but I thought it was pretty dreary, pretty sad for the character of Superman. I think that vibe goes better with Batman in my opinion. But which I love Batman, by the way. And this was fun. It was inspiring. It was hopeful. It was a good, clear demarcation between good and evil, and kind of like not afraid of telling people what's good and what's bad, right? Which I think these days people get kind of thorny about it. So I think it was great.
John Wyatt.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It does not go in for subtlety. Like Alan said, it draws real clear lines about what's good and what's bad, and how it wants you to take something, what it wants you to take away from that. And then it sort of hits you over the head with them. But like in an enjoyable sort of way. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was a joy to watch. I think it doesn't. A lot of it doesn't necessarily bear pulling apart very much. Like when you start to dig into it, like some of its aspects fall apart. Some of them we'll get into that, I'm sure. But like I thought as a go see it on a Monday afternoon to kill a couple hours. It was really fun. And it was, as Alan said, it was really hopeful. So that's nice. I think it's very much, in some ways, a movie of its moment.
Colin, what you think?
Like John, I thought there was an egregious lack of eels. I don't think I saw one of them at all. And
you wouldn't believe how many times I walk away from a movie just shaking my head, man.
It must be quite a few, honestly. I was, but like John, I was taken out of it a little bit by some of the weird plot holes and things that came about. It was not my favorite. It's definitely not my favorite superhero movie. Not my favorite James Gunn movie. But I liked the departure from Dark Superman. But I liked parts. I think I liked parts of Dark Superman better than I liked the majority of this film. So I'm excited to sort of hear other, sort of collaborate on, sort of help me feel a little bit better about it, because I know you're very excited. I feel like Jason. So we'll see. So I'm excited to dig into it, but it wasn't my favorite superhero movie for sure.
Okay, this is actually good, because now what we have is 4 men feeling our feels. So for those of you who are like, why are there 4 men? Okay, this is called therapy. Actually, Colin, can I share from our phone call what we had earlier today?
Sure.
So I talked to Colin. Colin's like, hey man, I don't think I can come. I'm like, why not? He's like, I didn't like the movie as much as you did. I don't want to kill the vibe. And I'm like, you're allowed to have different opinions. Like it's good.
Hey man. Sometimes the pod's about the vibe, and I didn't want to bring everything down.
Bring your negative shit in here, General Zod. Well, too late now.
There has to be somebody to make us look better, man.
Yeah, going back to the first pod I did with you, it is better than Ferrari. I'll give it the better than Ferrari official stamp of approval.
Such a horseshit film Ferrari is. We don't want to revisit that. I'll tell you this. Like, okay, so I remember when James Gunn was announced, and I entered this film and was watching its development very closely for a couple different reasons. Because I'm a big Henry Cavill fan, right? And it's interesting that most people, when they're comparing this, are comparing this really largely to Man of Steel. I know the Snyderverse people are just like rabid and annoying as shit, and there's some real direct shots at those fans in this film. But I really like Henry Cavill, and I've always felt like he was a much better Superman than what he was given to be in those films, right? Like, and they never properly developed him. It was really always like Man of Steel, and then let's just jump into Justice League, and like let's bring Batman in. Let's never actually flesh him out, and I just never felt. And so when Gunn was hired, and initially they were like, "Hey, it's still going to be Cavill." So I was like, "Sweet," because I really like Cavill. And then who the fuck? David Corenswet? Who is this guy? Right? He's not Cavill. And then over time, and I was also worried about the tone, right? Because we'd watch the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff, and Gunn made the impossible happen because he made Guardians of the Galaxy like this impossible comic book happen.
One of my favorite movies ever.
It's so good. The three of them are terrific, and Gunn brings heart, man. Like, and he loves to talk about fathers and sons. Oh my gosh, right? It is there. Not surprisingly, I cried twice in this film as we watched it. Sitting next to my own son, I'm like, right? Ben's like, just pass the popcorn, pops, and so forth. So I also had some trepidation, but I loved this film. I've been the biggest cheerleader of this film. We've had a really good year so far for movies. Like Sinners was amazing. I really liked F1. If this version of Superman is your jam, then you're really going to feel good about it. I didn't think Jurassic World was as good as I thought. That's a whole nother mess of a show. So, but for context, before we jump into the ins and outs, where do you rank this on your Superman film list?
Man, that's actually,
it's tough, right? But like usually we wait till the very end to do this, but I want to jump in now. I'm like if you're thinking about this film in terms of the Superman films that you've seen, if you've seen all the way back to say the Richard Donner, Christopher Reeve films, like how does this compare to say to those films or Man of Steel? What did you think?
I'll start off here. I think I would put it sort of after the first three Superman ones and some of that's just nostalgia, right? Like those are ones I know from my childhood.
You're ranking the Richard Pryor Superman movie above this.
Sadly, yes, because I loved that when I was like 10, man.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's a better movie. I'm saying I liked it better.
I am going to start inviting like on a therapist like onto these things. It's like we're going to have the historians talk through the shit, and then we'll have a sidebar discussion with like someone who's like, what's going on right now? It's John Wyatt is explaining. So okay, so you put this at number 4.
So, yeah, I think so. But that's a sort of what I was driving at a second ago. That's a personal preference rather than like if you had to nail me down to like which of these is actually a better movie. It gets definitely better than the Richard Pryor one. this one. So maybe 2 or 3, but like the problem is that those 3 sort of form a block in my sort of in my nostalgia that just sort of sits there. So this one's kind of bumping up against it.
Colin, what do you think?
In a very similar way, my nostalgia is that like during my childhood, it was all Batman. It was the Michael Keaton Batmans. It was the Val Kilmer Batmans. That was kind of like the mega superhero movies were kind of Batman movies, when I was growing up. And so while I watched the early Superman movies sort of on TV and stuff like that, I never really dug those movies that much. And so then I'm really comparing sort of Henry Cavill Batman to this one, and I have to kind of go back to what I say where there are like, while my wife would hate it if we had to like slog through a 3-hour Snyder cut of Batman or of Superman, but those movies I think you're right. I think I like Henry Cavill better, honestly, as Superman. So for me, this would go maybe in the middle of some of those, there's 3 of the Henry Cavill ones, right? Man of Steel, Batman, Superman, Justice League. I guess you have maybe a couple of Justice League. So it's up there with those somewhere. They're just such different. They're just
radically
such
different films.
movies. Yeah, and this feels a little more comic booky versus, sort of like what's the real impact of buildings falling over and stuff that they really tackled in those Henry Cavill movies. So that's kind of where I land, I think, on this. And I really liked the concept of Batman versus Superman. And it definitely didn't pan out as like the best movie I've ever seen, but I think I still maybe enjoyed that concept over sort of the generality of this movie.
I think I have to agree to a degree with Colin, because personally, I've never been kind of like a huge Superman guy. If I have to choose a DC comic character, for me, it's always Batman. That's like my DC universe character, right? And we can talk about why each of us or some of us prefer Batman, but if I have to rank it into the pantheon of different Superman movies, I feel this one has the hopeful, more, I don't want to say super comic booky as originals, but definitely a bit more, but certainly the message of hope that, say, the Christopher Reeve films brought to the table, right? So I will put it maybe number 4 after those films, right? I agree with Colin that there were certain aspects of Henry Cavill's Superman that I like better, but just the message that this movie carries right now in the times that we're living, the historical context that we're experiencing, I think it's the perfect actor and the perfect Superman for the perfect time we're living in, right? Maybe not so much 10 years ago, but I appreciate the fun and the comic booky approach to a story that had been so serious in the past 10, 12 years.
Yeah, when I think about this, right, we keep talking about the idea of the tone and stuff like that, and all films are really a product of their own age. You've got, really the Superman films of the Christopher Reeve era, right, coming out in the 80s, all the way up to even, Quest for Peace, where it's very overtly, really not a good film, but it deserved to be, because it's really kind of talking about nuclear disarmament and things like that. You get the Man of Steel films, right, which is really kind of coming out of a post 9/11 kind of a world in which they're kind of wrestling with stuff about these ideas. And there are some of these different ideas here too, right? Superman is always going to be these issues of immigration. It's always going to be issues of belonging, of the idea of like, what does a man choose to be versus who he is born to be, and things like that. And you're absolutely right. And there are parts of Man of Steel that I really liked. Like Zack Snyder could always make a really beautiful action sequence, but the writing wasn't there, right? I really liked the version of Jor-El that we saw, this Russell Crowe, and the trailers of this of Man of Steel were terrific, right? You can help them accomplish wonders. I'm like, okay, there was still the idea of hope there, but it was wrapped differently. And I would say that this is actually maybe the movie that I want to watch again, because it's more uplifting. I was so much more positive coming out of this than I was, say, Man of Steel. Like maybe Man of Steel was the movie we had to watch, and this is kind of the movie that we kind of need to watch now, because things are so dark right now, it feels like, and especially in communities of traditionally marginalized communities. And you've got a guy who looks kind of like me, right? I mean, Court Sweat is not as handsome as I am, right? I get that. But if you could be, like, what would you do and how would you save the world? So can we ask a little bit? Okay, we're talking about Corn Sweat here. Can I ask you guys a little bit about the casting before we get into the spoiler-filled conversation?
Real quick, Jason. Let me, if you don't mind, I want to build on, because I think Alan really brought up a really good point about the historical context and what you guys were just talking about. Because I was talking to you. I was talking to someone about Black Mirror. That the show Black Mirror.
It wasn't me.
And I really liked Black Mirror prior to the pandemic. And then once the pandemic hit and, 2020 election and all this other, like all the negativity and everything and kind of the scariness, I didn't want to watch, Black Mirror anymore. Like, I didn't want the negativity, the darkness anymore. So I just, I do want to really agree with your point there. Like, this is kind of a movie of the moment, and that makes a lot of sense to me. And I actually think maybe they could have pushed it a little bit harder. I don't, obviously you can't sort of foresee what's happening this year when they were making this film. But you almost wish they would have, especially on the immigration side, and even the war between, was it Moravia and whatever else, and
Right.
you wish they would even almost push it just a little bit further. And I think that's where this film kind of fell short for me, is it felt like it suffered from a lot of cuts that took out a lot of more detail into different storylines and stuff like that. But really good point on the context stuff.
Can I ask you guys about how you felt about the casting on this now? Like the big thing obviously is Corin Sweat versus Cavill versus Brandon Routh, who we haven't spoken about yet, versus obviously Christopher Reeve. What else? Like let's set aside that, but like Rachel Brosnahan, Lois Lane, like thoughts on her, Alan?
I think she was perfect. I think she brought this kind of like, she played the perfect embodiment of raw journalism that in the comics Louise Lane, it's always risking her job, her integrity, her connections just to get to that piece of information that's eventually going to help the Man of Steel save the world or save the community, right? It's she played a journalist with integrity, in a superhero film, which is very interesting to see, right? Because often I'm just here thinking Spider-Man, I'm thinking other things. It's always journalism is always like against the hero, right? It's always the contrarian to the hero narrative, right? And here I feel she plays it in such a way that it's actually helping to reshape the narrative of the hero, right? And I don't want to say more because then we get into spoilers, but I'm happy to share more. But I love her as Louise Lane.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the better casting decisions for this. I think she's great in this role specifically.
No, I'd agree. I thought she held her own space on the screen really well. Like she didn't disappear, which is probably an easy thing to do, sort of physically and in terms of like emotional impact, next to the character of Superman, who's like physically really big. Like if you there's shots where they try to make him look like, where they let him look big, and shots where they try to hide it, but he's significantly larger than she is, and so she's got some sort of physical ground to make up just in terms of like taking up space on the screen, and I thought she carried that really well. And I thought I'd agree with Alan, like she does a really good job, and she's got some kind of limited bandwidth to work with, honestly, but she does a really good job of filling it in, I thought.
Yeah, the thing is, like, obviously the big conversation is like who's the best Superman and things like that. And you look all over the internet and it's all over the place. People have their different thoughts and stuff like that. I'm going to continue to say that Christopher Reeve is the single best casting of any superhero ever of all time. I think he defines my image of a superhero. But it seems like it's pretty much in unison that she killed this role. I mean, I think she's the best Lois Lane we've ever seen, and I don't think that there's when you look at the people we would compare her on, at least on the big screen to, I think Amy Adams was miscast. I like Amy Adams, but I think she's miscast. She felt like an older sister to Henry Cavill. Kate Bosworth was awful, and Margot Kidder, I never bought. I always felt like she was not. I just couldn't watch her when in the early films. And Brosnahan, I want more of, right? Like I think she's really, really good. What about Luthor? What are your thoughts on him?
Well, I'll start off. I'll say that I think he got the best lines in the movie.
Yes.
I think he, by far and away, had the most opportunity to shape his character way over anyone else in the movie, and I thought he actually did a really good job of that. I know him from some of his other stuff, but I don't really know too much about him. But I'm trying to think here of other Lex Luthors, but I think that he, again, easily stood out because he had kind of the best writing in many ways, and of course that's really going to help push you forward.
Yeah, I thought he was really well cast as well. He gets to do a lot of screen chewing, and I think he was well cast. I thought the character was kind of frankly. He felt very one-dimensional. And like I said earlier, the movie paints in really broad strokes, and he is painted in very broad strokes, without a lot of room for nuance or anything. He's very much channeling sort of evil tech billionaire vibes, which we're right in the middle of dealing with. And so, like, I didn't feel like it went much past that. but that's not necessarily the actor and the casting. I thought he did a really good job with what he had. I didn't think they gave him. I didn't think they gave him a whole lot to expand into, a whole lot of room to expand.
Yeah, I don't think the story went deep enough for him. So I agree with you on that, and I think that what he had a lot to work with in terms of an actor. But I agree with you in terms of story. I felt like there was maybe cuts somewhere. So, but I'm interested in what Alan's got here.
I wanted to build on what both John and Colin said, that, I think, at least for me personally, Lex Luthor has always been one of my least favorite villainous characters in superhero, especially representations of, because he can be, like John said, very one-dimensional, right? It's like, I just hate Superman with all my hate in the world, which I think Nicholas Hoult did an excellent job about it, right? And I love that also they brought the whole justification, the xenophobia, the anti-migrant, right? Well, he's an alien, right? He doesn't belong to us. He wants to control us, right? He's invading, right? He's changing society. But I wanted to see more of that. Give me the reasoning so that what happened to you? What is the beef between you two? We got the crawl at the beginning 3 years before. He came out as Superman, right? But I feel a character as one-dimensional that often is Lex Luthor. I think they could have had a chance of complicating the narrative a bit more, right? Especially when you have like the good counterpart, which combats crime in the same universe, which is Batman, right? So it's like, how can we create some nuance, right? I'm saying I support Lex Luthor, right? Don't put that on me, but I'm just saying I wanted to understand him a bit more, right? I mean, it's just I don't know.
You're gonna buy his biography. What you're saying? His autobiography.
I know, God. No, but God help us.
You know what I would actually like to build off what Alan's saying. Like, I would actually dig, because I think Nicholas Hoult could do this, right? I think I'd almost like to see a Luthor film where we understand Luthor who he is, but not like that weird Joker film with Joaquin Phoenix. Those two, like those things, I think they were unwatchable. I think both of them were absolute garbage. I would you're absolutely look, you've got 2 hours. You can only do so much storytelling and so forth. But yeah, like, this is all we see of Luthor is full on rage. Then for 2 hours solids, there's no nuance to him. It's like, I hate this. All I am is hatred for this guy. We don't know why, aside from the fact that he's an alien, right? And you're a mega billionaire, right? Like, you shouldn't have any issue. Like, so I want to know why, right? And like, what's this rivalry about?
In some ways, and I want to dive into this a little bit more once we get past the spoilers. In some ways, I felt like there should have been a movie before this movie. I feel like we'll get more into that later. But
let's pause for a second.
It's not always possible, but like a little movie before the movie would have been probably helpful.
All right, well, let's pause real fast. All right, if you're listening, I always say this. If you're listening in right now, if you haven't seen the film, first of all, go see the movie. But if we're going to pause right here real fast. If you haven't seen the film, we're going to jump in and just break it all down. All right, Colin?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it started right at the front with Superman sort of getting defeated, like right off the top. And you're kind of like, well, wait a second. And then we kind of introduce the bad guy, and it's the Hammer of Baravia or whatever, and you're kind of like, well, wait, what do you mean he's getting defeated? And of course, we later learned that, oh, it's a clone. It's actually him fighting himself and all this other kind of stuff. But I actually feel like if there had been this could be me not being a film expert. I almost wish I would have had a little nugget maybe earlier, even if it was just kind of in an earlier film or in like some kind of teaser or something like that, where I could have just a small nugget to know and try to understand what's going on. Because for most of the film, he kind of felt weak. Yeah. And I always feel like that's one of the best parts about Henry Cavill Superman is I always felt like he was just mega. Like, there was times when it felt like he was being held back, but when he was Superman, like there was just nothing that could take him out. And in this, it was a much more sort of humanized Superman where he spent a lot of the movie just kind of like meh, not really like in super strength.
I'm going to differ with you on this because I dug the jumping in right in the middle of the fight. I actually dug the idea of like 300 years ago, 3 decades ago, 3 hours ago, 3 minutes ago. Like
Yeah,
I
that was cool.
dug jumping in. Like and Gunn has said this in interviews. Like I don't need to see Batman's mom's pearls on the ground anymore. I don't need to see these I think we're origin storied out in so many ways. Like the Superman the comic I think has been around since 1938. So you're talking about almost 100 years of this. Like we know these aspects of these stories, and like especially as quickly as they seem to be rebooted. Like remember when we had Spider-Man and then we had the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, which felt like 18 months later. It's like that was the big thing that hurt Garfield's Spider-Man. The writing wasn't as good, but like I like to be able to. I like the idea of just introducing us to this world and then trusting the audience to just catch up. And I dug that.
I think I fall somewhere in between the two of you. You don't need Superman's origin story. It's it's so well known, and they actually do a pretty good job of like bringing you into it anyway through the video with his parents from this and all that. I did feel like the opening is, intentionally abrupt, right? You get the like like you said, 300 years, the little crawl, and then he just like crash lands in front of you. So it's intentionally abrupt, but I feel like the movie could have done a little bit more sort of setting the stage before that somehow, and I don't know how, but like the war between Baravia and Jalanpur or whatever it is, like that winds up being really pivotal in the film, gets introduced in that moment, but like if you blink, you miss it, and then you're like, what the fuck is going on, man? I've never been a big fan of sort of starting things in media res anyway, and that's just a personal preference. So I think I would have liked a little bit more of a little bit more sort of walk through coming into it, but that's just me. I agree with Colin that he's a little bit more, he's got more humanity to him, but that's the point, right? Like he has to make the point that he comes to at the end of the film. If he spends the entire film being so ungodly untouchable that like you look at me like, well, like he has to be vulnerable throughout most of the movie, so that at the end of the movie when he makes his sort of big concluding speech, like you believe it. Like he can't be impervious to the world and then stand there and be like, what makes me human is my fallibilities. Yeah, because then everybody in the audience is like, no, you're not, dude.
No, I definitely agree with you, John. I think it you put that together really well. I agree with that approach, and I see that. I think this is part of me just wanting kind of a really fun Superman.
Right.
I want him to be. I just maybe I just wanted him to be Superman a little more often. That's kind of where I was at. But as a film, it probably works better for the exact purpose that you just stated.
It's a complicated thing, right? Because we had like 10,000 Superman films already, right? And if you've been alive for the past 40 years, you get the basic notion of who Superman is, where he comes from, et cetera, right? So I respect jumping in. I also, it's kind of like harkening back to the conversation we're having, some of these supporting characters, right? Whether it's Lex Luthor, whether it's Green Lantern, right? Which I would love to talk about later on in the conversation. I was like, oh, he's cool that he's here, but how? Right? It's a delicate balance, right? So
sorry if I can interrupt you for a second.
Yeah. Please.
Are one of the issues I have with this movie. The cast is huge. There are so many people, and you don't. It's really hard to figure out the stakes for any of them. They sort of come and go, and you're like, do I care about this person? Should I care about this person? Like, what's going on here?
That's been a problem with comic book heroes movies for a long time, which has been this rush to, in a lot of ways, the MCU really ruined a lot of filmmaking, right? The success of the Avengers films, the super team ups. And look, there's rarely a comic book that doesn't feature a couple of superheroes, right? It makes sense, right? Like if all these guys are superpowered, they can race around the world to go help out their buddy whenever there's a problem. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't Green Lantern just show up, right? They're like, why wouldn't Aquaman just be hanging around? There's a big ass ocean, right? Like how do you write around that? And I still felt, and I was really worried about that, right? And I felt like we started getting that in the Batman movies, like Batman Returns with Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer. I'm like, and we had Christopher Walken's like 3 bad guys. Like it doesn't work with the mano a mano thing, the development that like we're asking about with the Lex Luthor stuff that Alan's saying about, right? It's like you're worried. Now there's a lot of fun stuff. Like we'll talk about Mr. Terrific in a second, who's just my God.
I do want to tack on a little bit to what John said there, and I think about the scene especially, and we're talking about all the characters. I'm not, when he said that, I wasn't even thinking of superhero characters.
Yeah,
I was thinking of all the other characters that
Jimmy's
are involved.
great.
I mean, look at that, like who's in Mr. Terrific's little pod thing at the end. The entire like news, like the entire, that's like 6 different characters right there.
Right.
None of which are superheroes. Some are very important to the show. And yet, like, there are so many characters, and that was, and I apologize because I kind of derailed us from casting, but there were so many really funny people in there, like Beckett and
Beckett's hilarious.
The guy, I wanted to really shout him out, so I've got my classic IMDb up right now. The guy who played, oh my gosh, help me. Oh, Skylar Gisondo.
Yes.
Jimmy.
So he was tremendously funny. Like that dude is in one of the most, I think, criminally underrated shows on the planet, which is Santa Clarita Diet, and he was absolutely hilarious in that. And I would definitely say that they criminally underused him in this movie. And it's so hard because, to John's point, you have so many characters that even the funniest people don't really get enough time to be funny and to like really build their characters enough, which is kind of why I'm like movie before the movie thing, because I really want to, Beckett's hilarious. These people are, it just, anyway, that kind of did, these guys didn't get enough time, I think, to shine.
See, I think that's where we're getting the TV series though, because we already know we're getting a Jimmy series now. They just announced like we're getting a Mr. Terrific TV series.
Oh wow!
And a Jimmy series.
Wow!
So maybe we'll get to.
He deserves it, man. That kid is really funny, and I've seen him in a lot of smaller things, but he is so funny.
But isn't the fact that you guys are saying we didn't get enough of this person, I wanted more of this person, isn't that the idea? Like you always want to leave people wanting more versus saying like, oh God, it's like they just spent too much time on the dialogue of this one person drove me nuts. Like I like the idea a little bit. Going, God, you know what? I really like the 7 minutes I got with this one character, and I hope to see him again in the next film. Right? I don't know. It's maybe.
I didn't have that feeling when I watched Guardians. I'll just say that I felt like every character got to shine. Every character got to really sort of play their part, and especially on the comedy side. And so I agree with you in a little way, Jason. But like there were actually more people to see this movie than there were to see F1 when I saw that the other day. I never heard one laugh, no reactions from the entire audience whatsoever. And I just think that kind of comes through because I don't think the funny people and really got to sort of shine where they should.
Can I ask you about a character that we haven't talked about yet? Crypto.
Oh.
Okay, when this trailer came out, I was like, what the fuck? A dog? We have a dog in a superhero movie?
I had that thought too, but he nailed it, man.
John, you want to go for it? Like Crypto, dude, did he or did he not steal the entire goddamn film?
Yeah, no, he did. And I think there's a damn fine reason why he's in the last shot. I had the same thought watching the trailer. I'm like, oh man, this could really go bad. But no, he's great. He's in the movie enough. He's definitely got his own character, right? He's a pain in the ass.
He's fucking batshit insane.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of my parents' dog, actually. I was watching, I was like, oh, that's Roger. Yeah, okay. But he, among other things, he gives Superman like one of his most human moments, I thought. Like where he's like, he's not even a good dog, but he's lonely. I gotta go take care of him.
Yeah. There is a great humanity in the most powerful creature in the entire galaxy, right? Who cannot handle a puppy, who has destroyed the Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah.
And part of me wonders, like, how is what's going on with a super dog? That's really weird. But like, I also didn't care it just was
Fun.
Yeah.
great that he
It's fun.
was.
It's partially because in that universe there's just like a super everything, and so you're just like, okay, underdog makes sense.
And I really liked that you could keep him busy by like letting him chase imaginary squirrels forever.
Yeah, that was torturous. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but the line when he's like Crypto, get the toy, and we all know what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
So much fun. Just like, because you're just all in. Alan, what are your thoughts on Crypto, the super dog?
I was the first time I saw the Superman trailer was months ago, and I was like, oh god, they're gonna have Crypto in here. I don't know if that's gonna work in a serious live action film of Superman, right? Because I was thinking Man of Steel terms. And then the moment he came in, I was like, wow, that reminds me of the family dog that we have, right? He just pees everywhere, and he's just like running amok, and like there's a scene towards the end that I'm pretty sure you all know what I'm talking about. I was like, okay, this is my favorite character of the film now. Like he just
just
stole
say it.
Right?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah,
I mean, when he just like trashes Lex Luthor in his office, right? And talk about humanity with Superman, right? Because even Superman is like, shit, I kind of fucked up with this one. I'm sorry, Lex. Like it's kind of crazy. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I love that. I just love that.
I really enjoyed that he was untrained and apparently untrainable. Like the moments where Superman is trying to get him to do something, it's like, for the love of God, just take the cape in your mouth and pull me.
Here's the thing. There's a great line in there when Superman looks at Crypto. He's like, what the hey? Right? And just those words specifically give you this idea of like Superman is a Boy Scout. And I feel like that's where they really nailed the idea of a younger Superman, of this guy who is just like, it's like, what the heck? I'd be cursing and my dog vomited in the floor the other day. Oh my God, I filled up the house with curse words. I was like, I'm whatever. And he's like, what the hey, dude? I loved it. Here's an interesting thing. I don't know if you've seen this. Did you know that since this film has come out, internet searches for adopt a dog have gone up over 500%?
I did not. That's great.
Incredible.
Adopt a dog near me has gone up. Like the internet search for those terms specifically over 500% since this film came out.
Wow.
That might be the greatest superpower of them all.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a question for you. And this is a thing that I've been really wrestling with as far as my positionality with Reckoning and stuff like that. Is this film the answer to the Joe Rogan toxic masculinity that is going around in the world right now?
It certainly wants to be.
I mean, it is presenting in ways that Andrew Tate and the Logan Pauls and Rogan and Jordan Peterson and all these other guys who tell us what masculinity is.
Right.
And they're saying maybe the most punk rock thing you can be is be kind. You know? Like this is what a man does. A man takes care of people. A man protects other people. A man protects squirrels.
Squirrels.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? When you go to the squirrel part, right? But I kept thinking about this whole message of joy and hope and taking care of people. And he's unabashedly so. Isn't this what we want of our young men in our society? People who take care, who care, who are kind.
I think it might not be the full answer to that toxic masculinity that's been espoused for the past 5-10 years, right, on the far right spheres of podcasting. But I think it's definitely the start that we need in popular media for that, right? I think it's setting example to, I don't know, 5, 7, 8, 10-year-old young boy, right, that looks up to superheroes, right? When you're in YouTube right now, these generations are growing up with tablets, and there's all this crap that all these kids are listening to, right, that affects their development into kind people, right, human beings. And here we have arguably the biggest, most powerful superhero of all universes, right, comic extended universes, saying, it's cool to stop and save a squirrel from a building falling on top of it. It's cool to, share about my feelings with people that are torturing me, right? It's cool to be empathetic and try to save a baby, even if it costs my life. It's cool to sympathize and getting in trouble politically, even if what I believe it's right and people believe it's right, it's okay, right? I mean, I think it's a call to action to think communally rather than individually, at least in my opinion. I think kids today need that.
Yeah, to ask for help, right? Like, by the end, he's got to ask for help. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm a little more cynical on the idea that this is somehow going to change everyone's attitudes, but I think it's the right direction. But yeah, as far as superhero movies go, it's definitely the right direction.
Sorry, this is a very not even a half-formed thought.
That's what we're here for.
Awesome.
That's why I put 4 of us together.
Yep.
Right, so if I have a quarter of a thought, then you guys can fill in.
With our powers combined, we will have one single thought.
It's like the
Voltron.
twins
All
from
right,
Justice
sweet.
League, no? With the rings, it's like, ah.
Yeah.
All right. So I think there's value in presenting. I think there's value in presenting heroes sort of that are relatively faultless. I think this is a thing I think about. So this is gonna wander off in a different direction for a second. This is a thing I think about sometimes in terms of like our responsibility as historians, and the way that we deal with the past and present the past to people. And like you talk to most historians and you're like, do you like the people you study? And we all say no, because like you get to know them and they suck because people suck, right? And I think historians often feel like everybody else should be like this too. We should all understand that the past was full of people who are fallible and gross and like some good and some bad. And we ignore in that process the fact that people need heroes, for lack of a better term. People need historic heroes. Like if you tell them that the heroes that they grew up with, say the founding fathers, for example, if you tell them that they all suck, right, and they're all fallible, then I think a couple different things happen. I think they look for heroes other places maybe, or they decide that maybe it's fine to look up to people that suck, and that maybe gets you people like Donald Trump. Like these are all like as a very quarter form thoughts that I think about, but I think about them a lot, just in terms of like what a historian's responsibility is to presenting the past, both in terms of honesty to like fidelity to the truth, but also to understanding how people use it and think about it and need it. And so in that vein, I would say that I think the movie is trying to make a very good stab at presenting a kind, generous, thoughtful human hero, but one who is sort of, he has faults, but they're all like very basic, very minimal human kind of faults, right? Like he doesn't have big skeletons in his closet. And the worst skeleton he has in his closet in terms of the movie is that his parents wanted him to be a terrible person and he didn't do it.
No, this is actually really powerful. I feel like I need to put a bookshelf behind me now and turn on my historian hat. Remind everyone that I'm Dr. Colbourn. I'm not just Colin here.
You know, Dr. Colbourn does actually sound like more like a supervillain. I'm just putting it out there.
That's fair. That's fair.
Dr. Colbourn.
No, I think it's really interesting. Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I think you know, in the field of military history, and I know in the field and on all of our fields, the last 4 years have been spent complicating those simple narratives that have sort of emerged and dominated, right? And so it's been our jobs collectively over time to really poke a lot of holes in the good versus evils of history. And then I wonder, so maybe, you know, so then maybe it's pop, you know, and pop culture clearly took a shot at that, right? Like that's what those mid, you know, 2010s Superman movies were doing, the complexities, the realities, and all those kind of things, and maybe it's pop culture's job to bring us back, and you know, we can still allow ourselves to have classic good versus evil narratives, but I do wonder, you know, I think it's an interesting question for historians. Then, are we going to have a rebound? You know, are we going to stop complicating? Have we overcomplicated? And, you know, to your point about the founding fathers, I think is quite interesting. So,
and I'm not trying to be an apologist.
That's my quarter. That's my quarter thought, John. So now we get to just turn it on. You know, turn it out to everyone else.
If can I jump real quick on this? I promise I won't take too long of this. I think like I totally understand the position that John, that you bring about, like, you know, that maybe we have to like temper the fallibility of some of our of the figures we look up to, right? But as historians, when we present the past, right, I think it's complicated to strive to be objective when talking about human beings and human narratives and human contexts, right? Even if we look at them from the perspective of being the specialist in our field, right? Particularly when we're talking about a superhero that's created by the sons of Jewish migrants, right? At a time where anti-Semitism was running rampant in the country, right? And again, it's like, it's complicated. Nothing's black or white, right? And we have to strive to, we need to strive to find a sort of balance, right? And I agree that perhaps we need a rallying cry, a rallying figure like Superman right now, something hopeful to stand behind, right? But I also like the fact that the movie and James Gunn and this new Superman is telling kids like, hey, I'm not perfect, right? We all commit errors, right? And the biggest superpower perhaps is not my laser beams or my super strength, right? But is the ability to, number one, be empathetic, and number two, to fall and then also pick oneself back up and strive to do better. I think that's kind of the message here, right? Whether we can apply that to some of the narratives, right, that we tell as historians or we disseminate with the public, right? That's a big challenge of our profession, I think, especially in the times that we live in, right? But I think we're at a complicated juncture, right? If you do it one way, they're going to hate you. If you do it the other way, they're going to hate you, right? So as we all know with articles and books and publishing, right? So it's a difficult balance, I think.
I think, Alan, you're absolutely right. And I think the rest of you guys are on something here, because I think that humans can. I don't know if historians can, because every time I bring up someone in history, I'll give up an example of, say, a guy like Theodore Roosevelt, right? In the context of arguments like defending public lands recently, right? And I think in a lot of ways, he is like he is this nexus to which a lot of conservatives and liberals can find a lot of commonality in the defense of, say, public lands, or even, ideas of masculinity and things like that. And the second I say something positive about Theodore Roosevelt, right, I get a bunch of scholars on my flank, my people. It's like, oh, this guy was terrible, blah, 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 Indians. I'm like, motherfucker, I know. All right, I know he's not perfect. It's in his imperfections that I see hope, because despite all of these things, he still accomplished these other good things. He understood the struggles of the lower classes. He wasn't perfect. I get that. Neither was Hemingway. Neither was my grandfather. You're looking for, and it drives me nuts in so many people in our profession that look for this moral high ground that simply doesn't exist.
This is the problem, though, right? Is that, like, we know these are complicated figures. We know that imperfect people can do good things.
Yeah.
But a lot of times when you talk about the general public, those messages end up just getting sort of flatline.
The nuance gets flattens, really good word. The nuance gets really flattened, right, when you're having those conversations, because, like, in any given public conversation with somebody, you have a couple of seconds, right? Like, to sort of get their attention and get your point across. And, like, you can't, most of the time you don't have time to be like, okay, look, I need to sit you down and talk for a second, because, like, this guy was really bad, but, like, let's nuance it and think about the bad things and the good things. Like, they're going to take away, like, the top line. It's hard to have the nuanced conversation with people who, well, frankly, don't care to spend that much time on it, because, like, they're not historians. They don't need to. Like, they need the headline, and then they can move on with their lives.
Let me ask you about this, because this is the thing we need to talk about. Israel and Palestine are heavily featured in this film.
Yeah.
It is. There's no nuance here. And I was shocked. I was frankly, really thrilled to see the ways in which this conflict, this attempted genocide on the part of one to the other, was addressed in a superhero movie, in arguably the most important superhero film we'll see this year. Hot girl throwing Ben Netanyahu off. I mean, whatever his name is. Like, it's like, okay, the stones of this film to address this.
Yeah.
I thought was real. It is one of its most redeeming features. Guys, can we talk about how this film is talking about the Middle East? Because I think it's really, really important, because I don't know that young people who are seeing this film really understand what's going on in the Middle East. And the fact that this film had the balls to talk about it really impressed me. Alan, you're leaning forward, so you get the first shot.
It's a complicated question, right? I'm not gonna come out and here and say that this is woke and stuff because that didn't bother me at all. Actually, I applaud the gal, the courage the movie had to tackle such a difficult issue, right? To say, hey, this is not a matter of this side versus this side. This is a matter of basic human decency, right? And the right of a people or the right of a group to live, to exist, right? And by that I mean the people of Jahanpur, right? But it also surprisingly links Lex Luthor and Luthor Corp with the entire history of the military-industrial complex, right? And to me, that subplot of the movie felt less than a superhero movie. And talking about the movie itself, the whole thing, but just the narrative of Jahanpur, Arabia, it felt like, okay, let's address this very thorny, difficult issue through the DC universe. Let's have this conversation through popular media, right? And let's send a message to the people that often feel afraid of talking about it, right? Of taking a stand between Palestine and Israel, whichever it may be, about humanity, right? It's not about religion, it's not about a social group, it's about humanity, and it's about the value of being human. And the fact that Superman sees himself reflected in the struggle of the people of Jahanpur, right? Being invaded, being almost committed genocide against them. I mean, it's a powerful message, right? It's a powerful, ballsy message to take in a multi-million global franchise, right? In my opinion, right? What will be the repercussions of it? We'll see, right? But the message is out, right? And the narrative was taken from a standpoint, and I have to applaud Gunn for doing that, right? And what we're facing globally right now.
This is one of the places at the very top. I said that in my sort of intro, I said that like the movie does not go in for subtlety and it hits you over the head with things. And this is one of those places, right? Because like the distinctions it draws between Moravia and Jahanpur are like distinct, right? Like in terms of the names, right? You have essentially an Eastern European name and basically a subcontinent sounding kind of name, right?
Yeah.
Like in terms of the like the geography of the spaces that you see, right? Like Moravia is like it's flying over what's essentially an Eastern European city, and you get across the border, and it's like there's not actually architecture, right? It's just it's just wilderness essentially, and so there's a very I mean, first off, there's like a European colonial thing going on, but it's very clearly talking about Palestine, the Palestine-Israel conflict, and very, as Alan said, like really leaning into being like sort of tapping on the shoulder or hitting over the head and being like, this is being funded by these people with these like with ulterior motives here, right? Like Lex Luthor does not actually care about the people of Moravia. He doesn't care about the conflict at all. He wants to sell weapons to become king of Moravia, which incidentally, or not Moravia, sorry, king of half of Jahanpur, which I thought was maybe one of like the least believable things in the movie. It's like that dude doesn't need to be king of like a sandhill.
He really he's doing fine in Metropolis.
Yeah, he really is. Like I didn't buy that as I would have bought like he just wants to sell more arms. That was a much more believable plot to me. But like this is one of those places where I think it did not go in for subtlety at all. It was very clearly speaking to a modern issue.
I was slightly less impacted by it. I thought the way that the sort of, lantern comes, it had kind of a goofy ending and a very unserious. It was just kind of a very unserious thing. He wants to be king. To your point, I thought that was not really believable. It felt a little bit like in the Avengers movies, whenever there's just some other conflict that's going on the other side of the world, and they need to go and sort of take care of it. I think this story, while I'm not saying I don't applaud the idea that it's sort of tackling the idea of Israel and Palestine. I don't think they did it remarkably well. And I don't think that there was enough story there to get me to sort of have a deeper understanding of what was going on there. And it was almost, there were clearly no subtleties, right? It's just a bunch of people with sticks and against people with modern weaponry and tanks and stuff like that. So, as the military historian here, with this part the military part was not really, I don't know, just did not really super push me.
That's fair. I think to build on that a little bit, Colin, I think it's a really fair point. Like, if you're going to try and sort of wrap the Israel-Palestine issue into your film, which they're doing, you probably ought to have a better idea of how to wrap it up, how to conclude it, than being like, yeah, the only way we can fix this is essentially Deus Ex Machina, right? Like, we need a miracle in the form of people who aren't even human. Like, that's the only way this gets cured. Like, which is what?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Which is what the film is doing, right?
It takes the agency away from
humanity.
Well, both sides, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it does. Like, listen, hot girl dropping the dude from 500 feet is like got a lot of applause in the theater I was in. But again,
I think everybody'd like to do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So as we're coming here, let me ask you this: what are our critiques of the film? Now so I think we have different levels of enjoyment of the film. But like when we think back on the film, and these critiques could be heavy, these can be funny critiques. When you think about what you were nitpicking the film with, because I've got two. Actually, you know what? I want to talk about one real fast.
It's your show, man.
That's goddamn right. I'm Mr. Terrific. Love him so much. What were your thoughts with what they did with Superman's birth parents, Jor-El and Lara?
Bradley Cooper?
Yeah, I didn't like the casting at all. I all I saw was Bradley Cooper, and I didn't like, and I know it was only just a recording. It took me out of the moment. But then the idea that like, hey, we want you to like harem it up, on Earth. Like this was, I had never seen this interpretation of his Kryptonian heritage before. So what were your thoughts of that storyline? The idea that like, wait a second, they're not so good after all.
In the world of critiquing technology and AI, even after they said, no, it's credible, I still didn't believe it.
I know. I keep waiting for something else to come along in the next film. It's like, it turns out the word for boomtown actually means something else.
Yeah, that's right. These language experts, Krypton language experts, exactly.
Boomtown actually means have a garden in your backyard. Like, I don't know. So
yeah, that's one of the parts of the movie where I was like, wait, so I maybe missed it, a blink or something, but I was like, did they actually verify the interpretation that was faithful to what the message was saying, or did they actually? I feel like they never told me like they manipulated this, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Because let's assume that it is a real thing, right? Then maybe there's a connection between what Superman's father wanted to basically create a Kryptonian colonial enterprise on Earth, maybe, and that connects as an echo to the Moravian conflict. I don't know, but that wasn't clarified. In my interpretation of the film, to me, it was a BS interpretation, paid for the Luther Corporation, right? In my opinion, but at the same time, it's like clarify it, make it clear for the audience, right? Don't just kind of like leave it like, oh, of course it's not true because Superman is a good guy, right? Like if you're gonna stick with it, clarify it, and then that choice that Superman takes much more power at the end, right?
I think Alan, you bring up a good point, right? The idea is like maybe it almost doesn't matter, frankly, what the motivations, if it's a bad interpretation or if that's the real motives of his parents, because what we need is the central crux here of the question of what am I born to do versus what do I choose to do, right? Because that's ultimately Superman's central dilemma. Who am I? And I think that's where when people go, oh, I don't know how to relate to Superman because he's all powerful and things like that, right? It's this question of where do I come from? Where do I go?
This felt to me like a half-ass I am your father moment. Luke Skywalker versus Vader. Like, do I follow that path or do I not, right? But commit to it.
I'm going to echo that a little bit. First off, I thought I had some of the same sort of questions that you all did, and it makes me happy that it's a historian's thing. Probably you're watching it like, okay, so the translation, like,
the archive.
The archive.
How are we
nerds.
like who's doing
Did they use Duolingo to translate this? Like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. So I had this. It was one of those like the sort of historian training in my brain is like, meh. But it just it felt half-assed. I thought it was a really good term, Alan. Like this felt like a really cheap way of trying to like to pivot the movie and pivot public opinion, right? Like. First up, I mean, that gets to one of my critiques of the movie broadly, which is like the way that public opinion swings in this movie is a metaphor for the way that public opinion swings. Everything, like there's a news story.
How do we feel about Epstein files today?
One news story on one, like, and then everybody's like, oh, he does suck. Yeah.
The lady crying, right? I was like, this just came up in the screen, man. Like, what?
Yeah. And like,
what do we do to witches?
Exactly. So that like, I understand what the movie is doing there in terms of like the rapid swings of public opinion, and it's compressing things, and fine. But like this felt like really like a weak way of doing it, and in part because there's a large number of people that would look at it and be like, yeah, my parents are assholes too. Right? Like,
why would that change what you've done for your whole life?
Yeah.
Just because you learned that you missed one sentence, you're like, oh, wait a sec, I'm a bad guy now. It does, unless you're like a robot and you flip some code, it didn't make any sense to me as to why that would impact him.
Colin, doesn't that happen in politics though? When we learn somebody that said something stupid in 1981, and here they are 40 years later, a completely different person. Now we.
I'm not talking about public opinion. I'm talking about as a son. Like, the whole idea was that he had this choice now.
Oh, okay.
He's always had a choice. Right. I mean, honestly, and he's been, it's like all of a sudden his whole character is going to change. Right. Just. The stakes were a lot higher, than kind of what I thought they should be.
You know what I thought? I had the same kind of thought, and what came into my mind as I was watching that was they used to, all those like genetics companies where you could send them your like a genetic sample, and they'd send you back a report that told you were like 24% this ethnicity and 15% from this country and whatever, right? And they used to run ads for those where they'd have people who were like, so I did this test and I found out that I'm Scottish. And now, like, I bought a kilt and I love haggis. And who knew? It's like, dude, you could have done that anyway. Like, like having the test doesn't change anything at all about you. It just like, but they're so true. But the conceit of the ad is trying to convince you that like knowing some previously unknown thing about who, like your genetics, right? Or I guess your parents in this case, right? Like actively changes who you are as a person.
Right. Like what if you hate haggis? You're not going to all of a sudden, just because you find out you're Scottish, you're going to be like, oh my God, I love it now.
You have to. You have to. Sorry.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, but like I had that thought watching that scene. It was like, yeah, but like it doesn't change any like who your parents are and what they wanted and what they did doesn't like it affects you. Of course it does. But like learning something that your parents thought 40 years ago doesn't.
It would tell me more about my parents than it would about me, honestly.
Yeah. Wrong last point is like everybody is like dying that like, oh my God, he's here to kill us. And Green Lantern and everyone's just like, nah. He came yesterday. He brought us milk. I mean, it's fine, Like I guess everyone hates him, but like he's kind of pretentious. That's what he doesn't want to say Justice Gang, so that's why I don't want him here, right? But it's like,
that's right. So true.
All right, I had one other critique here, which is this. So I spent 5 years in Wichita, Kansas, and I actually love Kansas. Love Kansas. People out there are super wonderful. Superman, of course, is from Kansas. Superman's parents do not sound like Kansas. They sound like they're from Appalachia. Drove me nuts. And arguably my favorite scene in the entire film was actually when Superman and Jonathan Kent saying, I'm proud of you no matter who you are. Yeah. And listen, guys, like I've been over this before. I have some tremendous issues with my own father and the idea of me being a father. So when I see films about fathers and sons, I guarantee goddamn to you, I'm going to cry. And I lost my shit when he did that. And oh God, and it was in the trailer, right? And I know it's coming. I know the talk is coming. And I'm, whatever. So that's my little critique there. The accents were, Kansans have a very flat accent, lovely human beings. I love Kansas. So I'm defensive of it. That was my little thing.
I enjoyed that they even that conversation gets a little bit of like immigrants are okay poking it because they go for burritos.
Yes.
Yes.
Right? Like that's how we start the thing. It's like me and your ma went down to whatever town it was and got burritos. You remember the burritos
great.
down there?
Yeah, good burritos.
And he did mention like his neighbor Jorge or Pedro or something. I was like, oh, they have a Latino neighbor next to them. Okay, cool.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, guys. Coming here to the end of the pod. Favorite parts of the film?
Well, you were saying your favorite part with the parents was when, the dad, and the son talking. But for me, it was when they were leaving the voicemail. That to me was probably when I laughed the most in the whole movie, honestly. So I'm gonna stick with that. Yeah,
right.
I'm gonna stick with that.
John Wyatt?
Oh, a couple different things, I think. It's corny and overplayed in some ways. I enjoyed the fact that like a lot of the movie is people watching the television to see the thing that's happening outside their window or their phones. But like I think the most enjoyable sort of set piece for me is Mr. Terrific's fight at the camp on the beach. That was so much fun.
Fun. God, that song has been all over the internet.
That was great. No, I
he
totally
stole
agree.
That movie. Every scene.
Yeah, and I actually thought Mr. Terrific was a great character that I was not expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought they did better with him than I was anticipating that they would.
Yeah, he's so much fun. I'm Mr. Terrific. And just how he would yell at Superman. The line of dialogue there at the end is like, quit messing around. I loved it. Alan?
Yeah, John, you stole my Mr. Terrific appraisement. I think he did, and no, it's fine. It's totally fine. I love that we're agreeing on this.
I want the jacket, Alan.
Oh, terrific! I gotta get that. I gotta say,
right?
If I have to choose like other than Mr. Terrific, and I know this is a Superman film, but one of my favorite DC characters has always been Green Lantern. And I feel they never actually got him right. And I'm not saying they got him perfectly, right? Because I have issues with that haircut, in my opinion. But that's just a different story for another conversation, another pot, right? But I gotta say they kind of self-center, right? This kind of like establishment of the universe where you have like Superman, which is kind of like, I'm trying to do my best and everything. And then you have maybe villain Green Lantern going like, hey, we're here to like save you guys, and like Moravians, here goes a middle finger made of my green light. Hey, just this kind of like approach to that dynamic was kind of interesting and refreshing, especially coming from the Snyderverse, right? Which I appreciated that. I appreciate that kind of like the beginnings of the Justice League, right? I guess.
Yeah.
No.
Nathan Fillion also is fantastic.
He is.
And also in Santa Clarita Diet, I will say as well for another reference.
Alan, you don't know this, but I just wrote you down as the co-host for the Lanterns podcast we're going to be doing later in the year, because that series is coming out. You guys know about this, right? I mean, it's going to be coming out on HBO Max. Oh yeah, it's featuring Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart.
Yeah,
I gotta watch this.
Cool.
Kyle Chandler as Hal Jordan, as an older Hal Jordan, which I love the casting. So
nice, cool.
Yeah. All right. Here's my penultimate question here.
Okay.
There is a trilogy in DC of characters: Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman. We now have David Corenswet as our new Superman. Gentlemen, I gave you no prep for this pod except to ask you who you would cast to complement Superman as Batman and Wonder Woman. So the floor is yours. I have my two right here. I'll finish with the last. Alan knows exactly who I'm going to choose for as Wonder Woman, but
I do.
Told you. All right. The floor is yours. Alan, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. This is gonna be kind of weird and controversial, right? I'll say Wonder Woman first, just because I saw this actress and she did a kick-ass job in her latest film that came out last month, part of the John Wick universe. I would choose Ana de Armas as Wonder Woman.
Ooh, okay.
Not only because she has the looks, right, and kind of like the innocent face, but after seeing her combat scenes in Ballerina, I was like, nah, she can do this. She can totally do this. So that's my Wonder Woman. Now, perhaps a bit more controversial choice, but if we're gonna have a young Superman, I would like to have an older, approaching over middle age Batman, right? That's Gristle. That's a bit disillusioned with the world, and then Superman kind of like that. No, dude, there's hope with this. And I think the perfect balance to strike that, and with a little bit of dry humor, hot choice, I guess, Benicio del Toro as Bruce Wayne.
Alan, I just watched Sicario again last night.
Good movie.
So good. Oh, I love that movie. Yeah, absolutely. Colin.
Alan, I thought you were going to say Michael Keaton for Batman. You know, if you're talking about like
an
older man.
That's where they got that's what they got right on the Flash. But go on.
I did not go maybe as creative as you did here. I was just thinking of guys who I thought would be cool Batman that are sort of younger now. The first name that came to mind, probably because Sinners was so good, was Michael B. Jordan. The dude is ripped. I would love to see him as Batman. I thought that would be epic. And then I'm going to actually give you I'm going to give you two, because Miles Teller was another name that came to mind as sort of an option there too. And then for Wonder Woman, this was a little bit harder. Jason, I was thinking of you when I thought about Anna Sawai, by the way. That was kind of like a little bit of a deep cut idea there.
Okay.
Otherwise, I thought an interesting one to get a little bit of humor in there. She's not like it's not about combat, but Kristen Bell, I was actually thinking of.
Wow. Okay. John Wyatt.
All right. Yes, I thought Michael B. Jordan as well. He was so good in Sinners. And also maybe Jake Gyllenhaal, I think would do a good job. And for Wonder Woman, probably Adria Arjona from Andor, which was, I just loved her character in that, and I'd like to see her do more. So
Andor's so good.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to give you my Batman. Brandon Sklenar from 1923. Spencer Dutton shows up and kills everybody. Every time he just murders everybody for 2 seasons. It's awesome. I'm totally buying in. Absolutely.
I have to look this guy up. What's his name?
Brandon Sklenar. That's the part. Alan, who am I choosing as Wonder Woman? Oh my God, yes. Like, she is the most beautiful woman on the planet. Second most beautiful woman on the planet, Shannon. So I gave her a shout out. Alan's fiance is in the background, so I will do that. So the second most beautiful woman on the planet to be Wonder Woman. So all day long, and she's with Jason Momoa, who is going to be as Lobo in the next film. So I think it works keeping the family. All right, gentlemen, we've been going for an hour and a half. I promise not to keep this going for too long. For Fletcher, we could have gone for another 2 hours, like full on. We'll have to do a director's cut of this pod at some point in time. So, guys, thank you so very much for spending the ungodly amount of money that tickets are these days, and all that. This is a blast. Thank you for being here. Are we the Justice Gang now?
That's it.
It's a good name.
We're in.
It'll work.
And that's a wrap here at Reckoning with Jason Herbert. Thank you so very much to our guests, Alan Malfavon, John Wyatt Greenlee, and Colin Colbourn for coming in and taking part and watching this film at the last moment. Thank you, of course, to our producer, Fletcher Powell, for making this show run. And most of all, thank you to all of you for continuing to support the podcast. If you like the pod, please leave us a good review on Apple or Spotify. That stuff really helps the algorithms, helps to promote it. Share it with your friends. And we've got a whole lot more stuff coming for you now that we're through the summer. So many more podcasts were coming. We've got a bunch that we're taping next week. So stick around. We'll talk to you a little bit later. Ciao for now.